Hi, shall I come up, please? Yeah. Hi guys, we're just a little bit late, but we've got Roisin and Pete here. We've got Marty, who just finished on air in Radio Nova 10 minutes ago, so he's on his way here, and Eamonn Barrett should be here in about 10 minutes as well. So, was anyone that was at the last one? Is this your second time here, or your first time? Anyone at all? No? Yeah? Okay. So basically the idea for this is that these guys are here to talk about what they do, the industry that they work in, and just give you a bit of knowledge, a bit of background. And at the end, then when all four people have spoken, we can just open up with questions and whatnot. So we're going to start with Roisin from Hotpress. So if you want to just give Roisin a round of applause.
Hi everybody, I'm Roisin Dwyer from Hotpress. I'm the commissioning editor there. I've been in my job for 10 years now. So basically my role is I am the main point of contact between Hotpress and the general public. And I also, my primary role is to commission all the editorial and every 2 weeks do out a plan for the issue and make sure that all comes together when we move into the production weekend. So that involves dealing with journalists, PR companies, musicians. Internally, I obviously deal with our internal writers, advertising, marketing, and the art department. But basically, if you want to get your band in Hotpress, or you have a single or some gigs coming up that you want to highlight, and you should be sending me your information. So just actually, could I get a show of hands? How many people here are actually musicians? So nearly everybody. So basically, dealing with musicians, they would come to me normally for 3 reasons: a single release, an album release, or some gigs. So people would, most of the stuff that comes into me now would normally come in on email. So what I look for when a band is approaching me, say for example you're approaching me with your first port of call would probably be you're going to release your single or an EP. The key components of what you should have when you approach any magazine, your biography and your press release, very important. So your biography, just actually a show of hands again, would you guys have, would you have done up your band bio that you can send around to media? Okay. So just very important parts of your biography, like the title of the band, very good to highlight as well what genre of music you perform, where you're from, how long you're together, then if you've had, well, if this is your debut release, obviously not, but if it's the second release, mention, you know, what you have released before. It might have gotten airplay, that's always a good thing to mention. Who you have worked with, where you recorded, these are all things. I get a lot of press releases in with bands talking for about 100 words on describing in, sort of abstract details the type of music they play, which is all very lovely, but if you're targeting media, you basically want to give them something that they can turn into a news story. So good to mention if you've worked with maybe who mastered your last release, if you've worked with a producer, what studio even that you recorded it in. If you've gigged around, mention venues that you've gigged in, mention festivals you've played at. You might have supported some acts, always good to mention that. And also if you have approached media before, you always good to keep your clippings, or if you've keep recordings of if you've been featured on stations, and DJs are always very amenable to sending audio clips to bands for your own files, so that way you can, when you're sending in a press release to me, you might have Marty Miller from Nova says they're the best thing since sliced bread. And also really important, full contact details. It's actually really surprising. Sorry, can everyone hear me okay? Yeah. It's actually very surprising how many people would leave off a mobile number. The amount of emails I get in with no contact details. So always remember a mobile number, because if you're, sending something in, you may not have heard back from a commissioning editor or a radio station, but they might have your, your press release on their files, and it might be, oh wow, we need someone to fill in this slot really quickly, and they might need to contact you urgently. So I can't stress the importance of including all your contact details. So moving on to your press release, has anyone ever drafted a press release or sent in a press release? So when your press release is basically, if you have a single, the press release will contain components of your biography, a brief bio. Try and include at the top of the page clearly the name of the band, the title of the single, the formats it's available in, and where it's available from, and very importantly, the release date. Also good to include on the press release, again, the producer that you worked with, an engineer, if they're a well-known engineer or a producer, maybe artists that they've worked with before. And also, given the day and age that we live in, a lot of people would send in SoundCloud links, and that probably would be preferable. Although, saying that, there are still some reviewers that write for us that would prefer to have a physical copy. So if you can, maybe both. Also, do not email a large audio file. That I can't stress the importance of that. Do not email large audio files. Links are always preferable. And again, full contact details. Oh yes, images. The people that are musicians here, would you have like photos of yourselves ready to send in? Like how many people would have gotten images done? One thing about images, and I'm not an art department person, but I do know from speaking to our own art department, some bands send in there would be images that would be manipulated and very arty, and although that is lovely for the purpose of a publication, we want to show people what you look like. So always, as well as your arty shots, which are very nice and lovely, also have a good colour image of you all in focus. You'd be surprised at the amount of sometimes you get out of focus shots in focus, looking into the camera. And if you're emailing it through, maybe ask, would you like me to send a high resolution JPEG? That's another thing. Don't send, if you're dealing with the print publication, maybe ask, what resolution images do you require, because very often we will get very, very low resolution images that would be perhaps just for web use, and they really wouldn't be any use to us. And if you're dealing with someone and they're coming, close to a production weekend, say, and it's which image, of these 5 bands that we're talking about in this article, which image are we going to use? It'll be the band who has, the clear, high-resolution image that's there and ready for us to use that we will opt for. So that's very important to remember as well. And dealing with magazines, has anyone ever done an interview, or what was it like? Does anyone want to talk about this? Who was it with, or do you not want to say anything? Okay, right. And had you approached them, and did they? Okay, great. So just dealing with magazines in general. A few general rules of thumb. Be familiar with publication dates, because if you're, for example, if you have a gig going on, say in 2 weeks' time, there's no point in approaching us now, because we're moving in to a production weekend on our May the 9th issue. A good rule of thumb would be, if you're pitching to a weekly magazine, try and get to them 2 or 3 weeks beforehand. If you're dealing with a fortnightly magazine, try and get to them at least a month before, the issue you're hoping to get your feature in. Because very often people will approach us just when it's far too late. So know the magazine that you're pitching to, know when the next issue is out, okay, Hotpress is fortnightly, they'll need to get my information a month before that issue date. So that's always a good thing to bear in mind. When you're first approaching any print magazine, I would recommend email as a mode of communication, as the best mode of communication, because you're dealing with people who work in a very, very busy environment, and maybe just calling them on the hop, you could be ringing someone when they're like an hour away from a critical deadline, or they're sending the magazine to print. So I would recommend sending an email, because obviously it's more efficient than snail mail, and including all your contact details, and perhaps, you know, asking in the email, is there a good time I could give you a call just to run through this over the phone? And that would be appreciated. And also have a good subject line. I know that sounds really stupid, but like, don't put, you know, band news or something general. Like, have your band name and then maybe what it's pertaining to, like EP release, single release, gig news, because you could be dealing with someone who gets 100 or 200 emails a day, and if they're thinking to themselves, oh, that band Seneca or Sample Band, oh, they emailed me, and they go back looking through their emails and they put in Seneca into the search and it doesn't come up. It's just a handy thing. It helps in the communication process. Keep it brief. I'd say give a quick introduction to the band, and a line or two about why you're pitching, and then maybe attach your biography and press release. Also, just the nature of my job as well in the last 10 years has changed hugely, in that we're not just a magazine anymore. We are Hotpress.com. We do storeroom sessions with bands now, where we get bands in to do chats to camera and play a few songs, and they go up regularly on the site. We also do gigs throughout the year around the country, like the freezer sessions. We also have the Hotpress yearbook, and we do an event nearly every year called the Music Show, which are all relevant to people in bands. Because if you're, obviously we're limited with the space we have in the magazine, but you could pitch, in your pitch you could say, if I understand the magazine is full, would you run a story on Hotpress.com, or perhaps consider it for a storeroom session? It's always good to know the media that you're dealing with, and know, you know, because a lot of magazines now aren't just magazines, and a lot of websites aren't just websites, they have various other strings to their bow, so know who you're dealing with. Also the yearbook as well. Of the musicians here, how many of you are listed in the Hotpress yearbook? Okay, no one. Oh, one person. The Hotpress yearbook contains a listing of an artist A to Z listing for solo artists and bands. So you should get your listings into me. I'm Roisin at Hotpress.ie actually for any further questions after this talk. And the yearbook is also a really, really useful tool to have. I know I'm not here to flog yearbooks, but it is actually really good in terms of the information it has contained in it. Now, I know a few of you have done interviews. For those of you who haven't, I've just a few tips on the interview process. So say you submitted your single to Hotpress, it got a good review, and maybe you said to them, look, we'd love to do an interview with you, and the commissioning editor got back and say, okay, meet our journalist on Wednesday in the library bar. So you're getting ready to go to your interview. A few tips: maybe read other features in the publication. So it's sort of, you might get an idea of the type of questions that the magazine, like that the interviewer will ask, from the style of writing within the magazine. Like, for example, if you're going for an interview with the Irish Daily Star, they would probably ask you very different questions to, say, an interview in the Ticket or in Hotpress. So know the publication that you're dealing with, have read it, and be familiar with maybe the names of some of the journalists as well. When you're in an interview situation, try and work with the journalist. Try to not give one-word answers. Know that they're looking for you to work with them. At the end of the day, they have to produce, you know, what they hope will be an entertaining feature in the magazine. So, you know, try and have maybe a few funny anecdotes on hand, or, you know, just have, from looking at the magazine and seeing the type of questions they have asked, maybe have a few, you know, ideas in your head of, like, what you might say if they ask you about the recording process of the single or gigs you've played before. Be polite, manners go a long way, and listen to the questions asked. is quite important as well, and work with the interviewer. If you've done your interview and it's appeared in the next issue or on the site that you've done the interview for, after your coverage, I would recommend like social media, Facebook, tweet about it. You know, that the magazine or website that you've spoken to are looking to heighten their profile as well as you're looking to heighten yours. So tweet and Facebook about it, and maybe even send a nice polite email saying thanks and that you'll stay in touch. Ireland is such a small country, and there's, you know, only a certain amount of media, so it's really, really useful to cultivate good relationships. And then in terms of live reviews, if you know there's a journalist coming to your gig that's going to review you, just a few tips. Say, for example, if you're playing Hard Working Class Heroes or a day-long event, always remember to introduce yourselves. If you're on a day with 10 other bands, you could have a journalist who's maybe working between several venues, just getting a flavour of what's going on. So always introduce yourself. Thank the audience. It's always nice to be polite. If you're playing your new single, say so. I mean, a journalist can't have encyclopedic knowledge of everyone, and although they will be familiar with your work, good to name check key songs in your set. And also for yourselves, plug any new release or maybe mention any dates you have coming up, or even shout out your website. Just general pointers. Dublin is small, cultivate relationships and work with journalists. Events and launches, if you've made contacts and have the opportunity to go to events, use them to network. Keep your eyes and ears open and be visible on all social media. Also another thing, videos and album streams. That, like, Hotpress has obviously changed an awful lot in the last 10 years, and one thing that we're on the lookout for now is any sort of exclusive web content. So if you have an album coming out, approach various different websites, or maybe you have a website in mind that is your ideal recipients of this, but maybe say, would you like, an exclusive stream of my album, maybe an exclusive on our video. All these things, very, very important. Okay, I think I have gone over all the main tips. Okay, yeah, I think I've gone over everything. There will be questions at the end, and also my email is roisin@hotpress.ie, and if you have any other queries or anything at all, you're very free to email me. Can I take one quick question from this man? Oh, sorry, it's roisin @hotpress.ie, and it's .ie, not, the website is .com, so that it'll go to someone who's a member of hotpress.com, not me. So .ie. Is that okay? Yeah, okay, great. I'd like to hand you back to Oren. Thank you.
Is there a spare chair there? Because Eamonn is just right here. Just need to get contact to sort it out. Okay, we're gonna move on. We have Peter up next. If that's true, Pete works for EMI, and he's gonna talk to you about what he does and the do's and don'ts of what to do, I guess, when approaching a major label, or if an independent is better. So, hand you over to Pete.
Thanks, Oren. As he said, I'm Pete Murphy. I'm the head of media and artist relations at EMI here in Ireland at the moment. I've been there 14 years, so I think I've seen some people come and go. I started in retail in 1987, did 12 years there, and got approached by the then Virgin label in 1999 to come across, and began working with the likes of the Tommy Kitten and Blue to cut my teeth, so to speak, and then they gave me Embrace to work with, and after that it was a love of rock and roll the whole way on. On a local level, I'd worked with Kathy Davey, with Cannery, Pugwash, Aslan, broken tracks at radio for them. There was a huge buzz when working with Kathy when Ray Darcy put Sing for Your Supper on, because we knew we were onto something. Ray Darcy's a very hard man to break. Similarly with Mick Flanagan with Tomorrow's Paper, you stand on a festival and you're hearing Tomorrow's Paper sung by 8,000 people in the tent, and you had a hand in doing that. Internationally, as I say, I started with Embrace, but I've worked through with Gorillaz, Sigur Rós, Coldplay, Katy Perry, so I very much chops, I think, and everyone on the panel kind of knows who I am. Most recently, I worked on the Emily Sunday and Bastille projects, so it's been a great 12 months working with Bastille, which I think we just handed over to Steve, who's in the audience. And I've compiled albums for EMI as well, the two definitive Irish rock albums, the Beginner's Guide to Jazz. So that's in a nutshell who I am and why I'm here. The main part of my job, of course, is press and promotions as the head of the media department, so I oversee all the planning of releases for the label. We would deal with, it's kind of fourfold now. You have your press campaign, your radio campaign, your TV campaign, and your new media campaign. Radio, I suppose I should just run briefly through the campaign to just show you timelines, because we get a lot of CDs from young bands nowadays going, we'd really like to work with you. We're launching this next Wednesday, and we'd like to get you on board. Radio campaign would start a minimum of 6 to 8 weeks ahead of release. You know, way out there, you have to let the track build at radio. You start with your national radio stations and build outwards from that into your regionals and your locals around the country. It's very tough, and I'm not going to say it's not, it's very tough for Irish bands to break into Irish radio. There's this, as you'll know yourself from listening to radio, Rihanna, David Guetta, it's constant, it's rotation. So to break an act through, as I say, the likes of Mick Flannery and the likes of Kathy Daly was a huge buzz for us, because you are fighting against the internationals all the time. As I say, we start 6 weeks ahead and we chip away with what we call the tastemakers. Marty would be one of our people for rock acts and stuff. Marty's been really, really good to us. Press-wise, it's the same again. You're way ahead on your lead times. You're doing your interviews 6 to 8 weeks ahead of your release. Sorry if I'm babbling here. I've never spoken to public before, and I'm actually planking up here. On the last Mick Flannery campaign, we were 6 weeks ahead of release, and my wife went into labour the day of it, so I'm texting her, pleading with her not to go into labour too quickly, because I had to finish the interviews at 7. But yes, it's twofold with press as well. You're looking for interviews, you're looking to place interviews with all your key media, and you're looking to get reviews, whether it be singles or albums. Same with TV, your holy grail obviously is a late night show or Saturday night show when you've got an act. And they tend to be very, very selfish. If you've got an act coming in for a late night show, they don't want you talking to anyone else, to any media, whether it be press, whether it be radio. So you have to weigh up whether or not it's worth just doing a late night show, or you want to spread that out over a whole week doing TV or doing radio sessions and press. Sometimes, depending on the act, the late night show is not the right territory for them, you know. We also place bands' promotional videos at TV, on websites. If an artist is in, we sort out all their in-market promo and that. Again, you'd have your pre-tour phoners to have in place before the band comes in, and then on the days that the bands are in, you're around working in conjunction with the local promoters, having the bands do that one last interview just to sell the last of the tickets if the concert is not sold out, get people down to the doors, and from our point of view, to sell records. What I do would relate to the other speakers is I would deal with the likes of Royseven's manager, just as an example, Royseven are fit this quarter. See, I'm wrecking the place. You deal with the act manager, you find out what their availability is for press, and then you sort out a press plan, you talk to your Martys at radio, your Roisins at press, your TV people, and you work out a schedule for the act. Obviously not next Wednesday, but weeks in advance. Approaching labels, sorry, I'm flying through this and I shouldn't be. Labels need you. Don't be under any illusion. I know people they'll fob you off. Labels need you. You need to sell records. It's as simple as that. So don't ever feel that you're pestering a label. Obviously don't go over the top and freak somebody out, but don't ever feel you're pestering the labels, you know. As Roisin said, get the Hotpress yearbook. If that is our Music Week directory, everything's in there, all the contacts you need, all the contacts of the major labels, the independent labels, tastemakers, they're all there. And just email them. Maybe, as she said, best not to ring them first up. email them, say, look, and as she said, never leave a subject line empty. Put the name of your band in there, let people know who you are. Send them either an MP3 or a SoundCloud link as a start and say, would you have a listen to this? We'd like to think you'd be interested in this. And as she said, can we give you a call? And we do reply to people. It's part of what we do, but also bear in mind that we are busy with other stuff, so if we don't get back to you straight away, it's not because we don't like you. The landscape has changed totally nowadays, where it was, I would get envelopes and envelopes and envelopes of CDs. That's not necessary anymore. Everyone's using SoundCloud now, or has MP3s of their work. So send those in, that's perfectly acceptable. I actually prefer that, and I prefer, not to see the band. We don't need photos of the band and what the band looks like, because I think the music should speak for itself. 3 tracks is enough. I've had people send me like whole albums and that. Just give us a sample of your work, and stuff that you're actually proud of. Send it in to us, and that's absolutely fine. As I said, the landscape has totally changed, and it's very, very exciting times. I don't know whether people are aware of it at the moment, but Sony have let people go in recent times. The PS office, who distribute all the kind of the bigger indie releases like OJ and Adele and stuff like that, their office is closing here at the end of June. Our office is set to close, I think, mid-June to mid-July. So it's gone from there being 4 majors to 3 majors. So it's a really, really exciting time for you as bands. It brings up the whole major versus indie, the debate, do you need to be with a major? Have you got more control if you're an indie? I shouldn't say this because I work for a major, but I think, depending on what your genre is, I think you're actually better off being an indie and having control of what you do. Because you've control over your sales. The only thing that a major, but not the only thing that a major can offer you, but the major offers you the whole in-house team, the marketing department, the promo department, the sales department. They're there once you sign to push everything. But a major label wants a hit. That's no secret. The radio hit is the big thing, and then the album hit after that. So if you're from a more left-field genre, I would say, maybe you're best off dealing with an indie, because an indie will actually really care about you. It's not those videotapes. The internet itself, as you know, has made things so much easier to get your music out there, but you should actually keep some control over it as well. Don't just put stuff up there willy-nilly. It's all, very well said, music's free, and keep control over what you've got. It is yours, it's an asset. You've worked hard on it. Contact people like First Music Contact and IMRO. Find out what they can do for you as well. There's all these organisations there to help you. Because we work with those as well. They feed acts onto us and we talk to each other. As Roisin kind of touched on it, be nice. There's this image in the music industry that you get a little bit of fame, you get a little bit cocky. Don't be a dick. People from the bottom all the way up don't like to work with dicks. I've worked with some huge acts, and the reason they're really, really nice to work with is they're really nice people. They've gotten through that. The people that you find are difficult are the bands that are just starting off and think they should be. Don't be. It's not rocket science. Just be nice to the people that work around you. Whether or not you decide to work for an indie or a major, do promo. This is huge. We get bands, they come to us, they're signed to us, and all of a sudden it's like, I don't even want to do interviews. Why don't you sign to a major? Because you've got all these people wanting to talk to you and do features on you, and you think your records are going to sell themselves. They're not. You have to talk to the radio stations, you have to talk to the press, you have to do the groundwork. God bless him, Nick Flannery, one of the shyest guys you could come across, but I've run him through the mill. He has talked to everybody. Didn't really enjoy it, but he did it, and is aware now that this is all part of the process. You have to do this. It comes part and parcel of what you do. I think I'm just about there. Most of all, as a musician, you have chosen something that's really, really enjoyable. I'm a failed musician. That's how I ended up working in record shops and a record label. Enjoy what you do. It's fantastic. Because I've seen the fun people have had. There'll be good days, the bad days. Just enjoy it. And if you do get a chance, this just went up online today. Patti Smith, maybe too young to remember it, but did an interview. So do a search for Patti Smith Advice for the Young. That's all you need to know. Thank you. If anyone wants to ask anything.
Okay, guys, we're going to just push on. So we have Marty Miller up next from Radio Nova. So Marty, if you want to come on up.
Evening all. How are we? Okay, my name is Marty Miller. I'm from Radio Nova, where I do afternoons there. It's a radio station in Dublin, and it broadcasts. Actually, it's one of the funny things about our station is a lot of people sort of think Dublin station. It isn't. It's a station for Dublin City, the county, and the commuter belt. So we cover parts of Kildare. We cover all of Kildare. We cover parts of Wicklow, and we cover parts of Meath and Louth as well. So technically, our station has a bigger transmission area, if you like, compared to stations like 104, 98 or whatever. A little bit, just a very quick thing about me, I guess, it pains me to say it, I guess at 23 years in the industry, I am, I suppose at this stage, a radio veteran. I started my life in the industry as a production engineer, so I worked behind the scenes. I was always producing up audio for stations, and actually I started in the whole industry doing live sound. So places like this doing, band sound and stuff like that. I was the creative services director for Today FM for 4 years. I brought them the idea of doing a Sunday night rock show, which was called Dad Rock. Back in the day, it was a few years back now. Then I was taken on by Spin to be their launch presenter. I was also their head of production there, so looking after their station imaging and things like that. And again, engineering all about station sound and stuff like that. It was after that then that I decided to go full-time on the air, that I wanted to concentrate and get out of the production studio and do some on-air stuff. And now, nearly 3 years down the line, here we are at Radio Nova. So I guess because of my production background, I'm always very aware and I suppose a little bit sort of when I get a CD in the post with a piece of paper stuck into it. Literally, this has happened with a handwritten note that says, play this on the radio, our phone number is. Okay, no man, and I'll be honest with you, all that happens with something like that is it goes straight in the bin. It'll never see the light of day, it will never see a CD player, it will never, ever be listened to. Not just by me, but by any head of music in a radio station. Radio stations in this country, they do things a little bit differently. I guess we've gone down, I suppose, the Australian and the American route of doing things. There isn't an awful lot anymore of disc jockeys on the radio listening to new music and deciding, okay, that's good, I'm going to play this after I play the Doors, there and then. That never happens anymore. Everything on every commercial station, even like Today FM obviously is a national station, it's a commercial station, it is like this. There is a playlist in place, there is a playlist generated by Today FM's head of music, by 2FM's head of music, by Nova's head of music, 98, 104, the list goes on and on. This happens in every radio station around the country, that a playlist is generated, and it is my job to go on the air and sell those songs as if I am playing them as I've chosen to do so, right? It's not as if I am honestly sitting there going, oh, great idea, I'm going to play Procol Harum now, because I'm thinking about whatever it might be, the Commitments movie or whatever. So I know that a lot of people don't seem to understand that when they send stuff to us. They honestly think that I am not going to play Led Zeppelin rock and roll, but I'm going to play X's new song. Why would I drop a huge band like Led Zeppelin or The Doors or whoever to play a band that are brand new or unheard of or untested and stuff like that? So this is where it comes down to being out there and creating a scene, I guess, for yourselves. A lot of the stuff actually I was going to talk about, Ms. Dwyer from Hotpress has nicked from me. So all of her information is 100% on the money. because that is the way it is, and what Roisin was saying is absolutely right, and all that stuff is so important about what she was saying. The talent in this country is absolutely unreal. We know that. You guys know that. You guys know you're unbelievable at what you do. It's creating a scene though, creating a buzz, and maybe generating a little bit of interest so that the radio stations and maybe some PR people, PR is something I'll come to in a few minutes, but creating a buzz and a want, it doesn't work, and a lot of bands seem to think, I'll jump on Facebook and I'll put up a text number, or I'll put up the phone number to X, Y, and Z radio station, and I'll get loads of requests wanted or made, and they'll have to play my song. They won't, and they don't. Now, upon saying that, it isn't all doom and gloom. I mean, there's heaps of. I can only at the moment, I suppose, speak for Nova and what we're about. At the end of the day, the commercial radio stations in this country are businesses. They're all about making money. They're about entertainment, but at the end of the day, they've all got a board, they've all got a heap of shareholders that are going, where's my cash that I put into this when this thing started? So, it's our job to get as many listeners in place, like bums on seats as it were, at any given time, on any given day. But we do try and I suppose go above our remit. We're not told that you have to do 50% Irish, you have to play 50% new music. There are stations in town that have those kind of, not rules, but you know what I mean. Phantom would be one of them. They are a new music station. They're very much about new music. RTE, being the public service broadcaster, has to be looking for new talent. I think I'd be right in saying that, Pete. They would have to embrace to a certain extent new music, though, right? And new bands.
Yes, we'll take the nighttime programs, but yes.
Nighttime programs, okay. And again, Nova, again, I can only fly that flag because it's where I am at the minute. We do a thing called Locals Only, which gets unbelievable hits, I suppose, for you guys. When you come in, it's like, oh man, I heard such and such a band on Locals Only, or I heard them on the Nova Recommends, which is another thing that we try and do. And we really, again, where some places might limit that to nighttime transmission, we would try and do, geez, the Blue Chapter is not like this place. We would definitely try and put our local recommends or our Locals Only bits, and try and push them throughout the whole day. We would definitely at night time, we would up the Irish programming as well, and those transmission rates, I guess. Bands at the minute that we are very much pushing and involved with and proud to be behind, I guess, would be bands like The Answer, The Minutes, The Spikes are proud from North Dublin, The Stripes, Riptide Movement, Frantic Jack, and things like that. If you have, one band did this last week on Nova, if you can, because advertising is less than you think it is, if you have an album launch or something coming up, it seriously would be worth taking an ad out on the radio station, or like a Phantom or whatever, and deciding, right, okay, for 30 seconds, 10 times a day, X amount of people are going to hear an ad for my album launch, which is happening. If you can, you'll be surprised that those rates are a little better than what you would think they would be. What do we do when we get songs sent in to us? Well, if the presentation is decent enough, as Pete was mentioning, SoundCloud and Dropbox and all those places are perfectly acceptable. But you've got to aim it at the right people. There's two real people that you've got to think about when you're heading to a radio station. It's the program director, and it is the head of music. Targeting individual disc jockeys and things like that, all we do is pass your stuff on to the program director and the head of music. So I guess cut out the middleman or whatever it is and jump straight in there with those relevant and those important people, because those guys are the ones who decide what goes on and when they go on. Roisin mentioned contacts and things like that. That's absolutely vital. And you know what? All of those people are in the Hotpress yearbook. All of those details for the heads of music and for the program directors and whatnot are in that Hotpress yearbook. When it comes to say, again, Nova does a show on a Sunday night called Locals Only, and I know a couple of guys in here have been in, and that is an excuse for you guys to come in the radio station and talk directly to your audience. It's great that if you can get on Facebook and Twitter before that and say, guess what, we're on Nova, it's at 6 o'clock, or it's at 7 o'clock, and it's on Sunday night, and it's going to be this, that, and the other. When you get in there, and again, this comes back to what Roisin was saying, it's vital that you're able to talk on the radio. It's no good you turn it up and the guy's like, hey, so new album out, you excited about it? Yeah. Okay, yeah, when's that coming out? Next week. So that kind of thing, you've got to be, if you're not going to sell it, we're not going to sell it for you, and you won't get an invite back. The other thing is that you should be prepared to do, even though you've gone full production on your record, and it sounds amazing, if you can strip it back for an acoustic session and you're willing to sing or play in a studio with a couple of mics, really low-key sort of setup, if you're able to do that, more power. That's that's a brownie point. Definitely have some stories from being on the road. We've all been there. We've been in the terrible interview situation. You might have a band that you think are really excellent and you want to get them on the radio. You want to help sell their stuff and whatnot. But if they can't sell it, I have said it to countless bands after horrible interviews that you've got to be able to come in here with something that somebody's going to go, oh yeah, that's the band that did the whatever it was. That's vital. Again, it's just about honing your craft and using media as powerfully as I guess you can use it. So that's kind of interviews and sessions. What else have we got? What we'd like to do, I think down the line, where's radio going and stuff like that, I think there's a group of stations here who've kind of gone mad on the TV route, which is just cameras in their studios, which is ridiculous because it's not television, it's radio. I think down the line, the way things are opening up digitally, and radio stations aren't just radio stations anymore, they're about Twitter platforms, and they're about poking you towards the website for music news, and content is being updated all the time. I think, it would be, down the line, I think we would probably see, say, an example again would be Nova Television, where we might have bands like yourselves sending us in videos where we could put them up online and have these things rotating all the time. I don't think we're a million miles away from things like that. In fact, just over the last couple of weeks, we launched 12 digital channels online. So if people like what Nova on FM does on the radio, well, it goes even deeper than online. There's a different sort of listening experience than offered. Say you love the Beatles, there's a Beatles channel, or at the moment we've got a Neil Young channel running because the big gig coming up at the RDS and whatnot. There was something I wanted to go back to. Oh yes, recording your tunes and getting your tunes played on the radio. This comes back to me being a production engineer back in the day. If you think it sounds great and you've done it in your bedroom or whatever, or in a little studio, and you really need to get that mastered, don't send us in a track that's just been run off your PC and burnt onto a CD and off you go. Honestly, the amount of times that you'll get something in, and this happens every day, you'll get something in, you might kind of go, oh yeah, the packaging looks alright, press release bit looks okay, you stick it in, and then you can't hear the lead singer, you can't hear, because the mix is wrong. And a mix for radio can sometimes be slightly different to what you should be hearing in a studio and things like that. Definitely get stuff mastered if you can afford to do so. If you can, again, this comes down to your money and things like that. If you can get somebody involved on the PR scene, that's vitally important, because as well as the Hotpress yearbook, but these guys know the people that they need to target with your stuff. So if something is suitable for FM 104, or something is suitable for Nova, or Today FM, or RT, or whatever, these guys know the people to target. They know who to talk to. And it's all very well sending off emails. I make a point, and just upon saying that now, there was a guy that emailed me today that I didn't get back to, but I try and make a point of getting back to everybody who emails me. And I get a lot of emails from people going, can you stick this on the radio? And I will try and point them in the right direction, or have a listen to some stuff and go, you know what, It's not really the guitar-based thing that Noah is about, but you should try and speak to lyric, because you've got a heap of flutes and that or whatever. Take it seriously. You just know who you're targeting, the amount of people that will write to you and say, hey, this is true, you know, we've got this track, would you have a listen to it? But it is that case. It's not for us, but it is for lyric, and I try and make a point of getting back to as many people as I possibly can. It's not an easy slog out there. It really isn't. But the radio stations sometimes take a little bit of flack for not supporting new talent and things like that. We honestly do our best, considering we live in a very small city with a very small listening, I suppose, a listening audience. I mean, what are we in? We've the guts of 2 million people in Dublin. Like, we've got a heap of radio stations trying to battle for all those people. You know, it's very difficult to suddenly go, right, yeah, I'm going to sing on this absolutely unknown band that I like, but nobody else does. It's just something to think about, I guess. That's me. That's it. Yeah. Obviously, any questions or anything like that?
Thank you. Great. Okay, we're coming up to the last guest, which is Eamonn Barrett from Royseven, who I'm sure Eamonn will be talking about where they're at the moment with the band, how they got there. They dominated radio last year with their single "We Could Be Lovers," so they did very well with that. It's been I've known Eamonn for quite a while, so I've kind of known about the journey that Royseven have been on, and it's very interesting in terms of what's happening now and how they got there. So I'll just hand you over to Eamonn. Perfect.
Evening all. First, I'd just like to thank Oren and the gang at Amplify and Overdrive for putting on this fantastic event. So I think a big round of applause for those guys. And again, the other speakers at the I was going to say table, but at the chairs, thanks again. Very valuable, I think, information for anybody looking to kind of invest time and energy and money in trying to get ahead in the industry. And I think if there's something like that, this had existed even when I was starting out, all them many years ago, it certainly would be very valuable. As Aaron said, my name is Eamonn. I'm with a band called Royseven. I never say, hey, I'm with Royseven. Alright, because sometimes people just look at you and go, who? So I think, kind of maybe regardless of what success you think you've pursued, people will always kind of, some people just won't know who you are. That's just a fact of life. So anyway. So our drummer once said at certain points that we would have signed a record deal for a can of Coke and a packet of crisps. Now this is quite in some ways an accurate kind of euphemism for how desperate it is that people want this thing called the record deal. It's one of those things, it really is, when you start off, it's the holy grail. And people tend to think as well that once you get that record deal, you have made it. That's it. You crack open the bottle of champagne, you sit back in the limo, and it's all gravy. No, it ain't. As I'm sure can be well testified from everybody here, that's really, in some ways, only the beginning of the next phase of where you see yourself going or what you're trying to achieve. I mean, for instance, with Royseven, we started in many different guises before we got to where we are. We were once a band back in 1999 called Jove. We had a female singer, different bass player, not particularly good, but the essences of kind of what, certainly when I formed and put the band together, what I wanted to achieve, or what I felt the people I wanted to bring was, you had to start somewhere. And I think often it can be a case where people think, I have to go out with this finished product, and it has to be polished and it has to be this. But something like that, from my experiences, I've found, only really comes with time, and only goes by probably making far more mistakes than actually getting it right. And most times you will come away thinking your gig was shit, and the songs were shit, and the crowd were shit, and you tend to just project outwards all the time because you're trying to move forward and you're trying to create something that you can truly sit back and kind of go, that was amazing, or geez, that's a great song. And as we've said as well, that within great songs, stuff like that, David Bowie has also said, well, he said, that a song is never complete until someone outside the creative process has actually heard it. I think that's a very, very key thing. You can walk around thinking, this is the best bloody song that I've ever written, and it's rocks. But until someone actually sits back who wasn't involved, be it the audience, or be it someone on radio, or in Hotpress, or in a record label, and can actually kind of say, that's good, that's bad, it's whatever. That's when the song actually becomes, it's kind of nearly no longer yours then, it becomes something bigger. And I think that's a very, very true and kind of apt point, you know, and especially as it comes from David Bowie, I ain't gonna argue with the guy, you know. The guy is a legend. So when we started back in 1999, we had a female singer, as I said. She wasn't particularly good, but again, we were trying to achieve something. In 2001, our current singer, Paul Walsh, who was living in London, working in Chelsea Hospital, and we approached him, didn't want to come back, approached him again, and then he said he'd come back. So when Paul came back in 2001, we had a number of lineup changes. The bass player left to get married. Anyway, so we got a new bass player, we added a keyboard player, and we added a second guitarist. And when that happened, something kind of clicked with us, and we actually started to write in a way, and we started as well to identify how, as much as possible within your own limitations as a musician, and we all have them, what we actually wanted to sound like, and what we wanted to do as a band. And I think that's a very important thing, because if you have, as we have 6 members in our band, everybody comes in and goes, well, I've got this riff, and I've got this, and I've got that. It can just sound like either everything else, or it can sound like nothing that's in any way viable, or is in any way sellable. And I think for us, we very much set out as quickly as we could to treat it like a business, because that's what it is. And as much as we were idealistic and we wanted to write great songs, we knew there was a format and there was an approach to doing this thing. And as has been said quite rightly, one of the key things, apart from the music, which is the main thing, if the music's not right, forget about everything else, it probably won't work. But the other thing is, just be nice. For all the years I've done this, it's actually about just being nice and not being false, and not going and going, how's it going, everybody? Hey, ho, I'm your best mate. It's not that. It's just about being yourself, being nice, and realising that these people are they're trying, be it in radio, TV, record companies, Hotpress, whoever, they're doing their job. They do want to assist. They do want to be the ones that break the next big thing. They do want to be the one that wrote about this band the very first time. They do want to be the ones who played this band the first time. They want to say, well, I played them. I was there before anybody else was interested. But the key is that songs and the attitude has to be right. And it's, again, it is a business. And I will always hark back to that. And you can either find out not that it's easy, but you can find out the easy way, you can find out the very hard way, because then people just won't talk to you. And regardless of people walking around with swagger, like, for instance, the Gallaghers and all that kind of stuff, and the Oasis, like, giving it the large one. Trust me, I know people who know them very well, and they're actually the nicest guys on the planet. That's an act, that's a bravado, that's something they do because it creates an image, it sells records, it gets everybody interested, it gives a backstory, it gives something like that, and yet they do kick the crap out of each other, and we know that, but they are still very nice people, and they know it's a business. And I think no matter who you would talk to, behind closed doors, people can be very different to a stage persona, or how they would want to be perceived. Because that perception will undoubtedly sell records and create infamy, will create hype, will create that kind of stuff that will sell records, because that's what it, at the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's about units, and it's about, and people will say, well, that's a very sad reflection on the way the industry has perhaps gone. And perhaps it is, but it was always like that. And if you look back to the days of Led Zeppelin, and you look at the bands back that days, what changed the industry was managers. The birth of the record, the band manager, changed the industry forever, because they're the ones who suddenly went from, were promoters, got 80% of the door, and the band got 20%. It was looking at Led Zeppelin's manager went to know with his cricket bat to record labels and to promoters, the band gets 80%. In America, it was 90%. The band gets 90%, you get 10%, and if you don't like it, go fuck yourself. And suddenly they went, and they accepted it because no one had ever come and talked to them like that. And because Led Zeppelin weren't promoted, the guy at the venue would, well, I'm not promoting them, if I'm only getting 10%, but sure, everybody knew anyway. So the venue would be full, they'd get their 90 and they'd get their 10. So it became this self-fulfilling prophecy, I suppose, where they started to make a lot of, and that changed everything in the industry, because then the manager, and what we found is the manager is the key to moving you through the doors of this amazing party called rock and roll, because you go into your first door and you're in the room and you're sitting there and you kind of might get a peek into the next room and there's the band you've idolised for 6-7 years and they're in the next room and they're hanging out with such and such and their record is playing and you're like, I want to get to that room, I want to get to that room. There's people who will bring it through that kind of journey, and one of the key things is really good management, because they will have the links to the record labels, to Hotpress. And another thing as well, which I found really important, is that it's important to have a manager who's really good at talking, who will talk to Heinz in a nice way. We'll talk to Heinz and Exile or someone and come and go, hey, this is Eamonn from Royseven, fucking amazing guitarist, great DJ, you should get it, blah, 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 and it creates this persona, and you don't have to say anything. You don't have to back it up. You allow that kind of myth nearly, or just that kind of fancy nearly to build, because that's your manager's job, and it should always be one, no matter what anybody says, they've got your back, and that's the key to a really good manager. And they're very good at just, they'll know everybody in the industry, and everybody know them, and it won't be annoying for anybody else, because they'll be respected, and they'll be well liked. And I think that's, to me, and especially for Royseven, was a real turning point when we attracted good management, and people who knew what they were doing, and knew how to get radio play, or knew how to approach radio stations, and knew how to approach a record label about getting showcases and getting your band exposed through pieces in Hotpress, through getting to know people like Roisin and saying, hey, you know, how's it going? You well, blah blah blah. And listen, that's a really, really good band, and perhaps I can send you some stuff. And it's not about play this band, look after this band, research this band. It's saying, and it's building up a relationship over what can be a long period of time. And what they also say, which tends to be, it can take 10 years to become an overnight success in this industry, and that's a very, very true thing. And if you look at bands like Elbow and Pulp, the list is endless. Like Pulp were going 15 years, I think, before they hit it with any kind of success, and that's a long, long time. But that's what it can take before you can reach a point where people actually do take you seriously, because there is an element where people want to see, and again, this is just from my experience and from Royseven's experience, want to see, okay, they're here now, okay, let's see where they'll be in 6 months, let's see where they'll be in 2 years. And I think regardless, you hear people, oh, I was signed after this, after that. I guarantee you, 99% of the time, there was a whole lot of work that went in before that, of them going, doing showcases, of them going, doing small gigs to, I think you said it was Bastille that did the Workman's Club last year for Canada Crawl, 20 people, and now he's #1 single, #1 album, huge, exploded. But it took those things to do those small little gigs and talking, getting on radio shows and doing that kind of groundwork. And I found personally some of the best crack I've had, touring being one thing, but actually going and talking to magazines, going on radio, be it 6 in the morning, 6 at night, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. They're some of the best fun you'll have, because you're out promoting, which is so key, but you're out there presenting yourself and presenting your music and presenting what ultimately, at the end of the day, you love to do. And that's another key thing. It's about doing what you love to do, but remembering it is a business, but it can be a great business, but it can be very, very difficult. And I think what we found is that having been through 2 record deals, 1 publishing deal, and 2 or 3 different managers, that sometimes it's never right, or sometimes you're always looking to move forward, and I think that's the key thing about music as well, and why it will always exist, I think, and why it will always be loved, because it's always trying to move forward, but you'll find things are very cyclical as well, that trends have a tendency to repeat itself, but I think it's always trying to find the next great leap forward in creativity and stuff like that, and you'll find that people come along every now and again and bring this amazing new spin on something, and people go, oh my god, look, you know, LCD sound system would be one example of something that I would have latched into and heard this amazing band, this guy James Murphy from New York, and gone, wow, it was like the first time I heard Stone Roses. Changed music for me, and that's the thing, you know, it's these kind of amazing moments. I think in regards to, I'm actually rambling now, right there with you. I think from being again from a band point of view and from a songwriting point of view, the music is the key. That's regardless of anything, as I said before. If that's not right, you can kind of forget about it, because that'll be the be all and end all. You know, you might have management, you might have this, you might have record label, but if the songs aren't right, well, for me, it's kind of game over. And again, like, you know, things like, as I said, be it major or independent, it's kind of finding people who love what you do and are willing to invest in what you do and what you created. And if you can find that, it's a rare gift. And it takes time, it takes energy, and it's hard, bloody work. As any musician here will tell you, to be in a studio for 9-10 hours a day, sweating, cursing, fighting, being creative, but doing what you love, it's incredibly tough. It's incredibly rewarding, and it's an amazing thing to be part of. The problem can be is that the industry can sometimes rob you of that. And I think we've gone through various points where we've actually almost given up because we've had enough. And there is a tendency in band land to blame everybody else but yourself, because at the end of the day, you're the one who makes the choices. So you chose to sign the record deal, you chose to sign that management deal. You chose not to get a lawyer to read it before you signed it. Never do. Yeah, but you bands and people make this choice because they're just, like we said, we would have signed for a can of Coke and a packet of crisps. Because that's all we wanted, the record deal. We wanted that sense that, my God, someone likes us. It's that universe, oh my God, he likes me, oh my God, she likes me. And it's that same being reduced to a spotty teenager with the girl down the disco sending her friend over going, my mate likes you. You know, will you snog her? Kind of thing. It's like that with the record label. My mate's record label really likes you. Do you want to meet them around the bike shed? Sign something. But it's that kind of, it's that kind of vibe. But I think part of it, as I said, is a business. It's a business also where you do need to sit back and, again, it takes sometimes money as well to get your contracts looked at. To as much as possible, to, like, some of the mistakes that we made, for instance, was that our management's lawyer and our lawyer were the same. So when we were signing our management deal, we had the same lawyer, so it was like, right, conflict of interest. But what are you going to do? Are you going to go, no, I'm not willing to sign that, and then that's it, done? Or do you sign it and go, right, we'll take the risk. He says it's fine. So do we just go with it and we see what happens? So what you do, you just go with it, you sign it. Because what are the choices? At the time you think, well, what other choice do I have? This may never happen again, I may never get this opportunity to get someone to pay to record our songs. So that was one thing I probably wouldn't do again. Another thing as well is that our one stage, our publishing, which was Sony ATV, and it was Jewel Music, which was they got 20% each of our 100%. And that's another thing, what you'll find with record deals as well. I am going around, but I'm getting where I want to go. Record deals now are like 360 deals. If anybody doesn't know what that means, a 360 deal is, whereas before, record companies tended to get maybe, depending on the deal you sign, they might get 20%, and it was normally just your record sales. And maybe they throw in a cost to get something around your merchandising, depending on the record deal. But now every record company signs a 360 deal, which is they get a percentage of everything, including your live earnings. And depending, if you don't read a contract or don't have any choice, that can sometimes be 25 to 30% of everything, whether you like it or not, because that's what you say. And then you've got your management, which is usually 20%, and then you'll have your publishing on top of that, which could be 50, sometimes 60%. So if you're thinking, for instance, with us, there's 6 people in our band. So sometimes we have to divide 40% of whatever's left between 6 of us. So if you're looking and you think that there's money to be made in this industry, don't quit the day job just yet. Because it can be that, the reality can be that painful. And again, you sign these deals and it's only afterwards, you get your statements and then you see percentages going here, going there, going there. And you go, where's any money? Everybody thinks I'm rich because we had that big single on the radio. Oh God! Don't tell me, man. Oh Jesus! They've made a cake, and that's what it's like. It can be extraordinarily, at times disheartening, because you suddenly realise what you've actually signed away. But you have to balance that with what you have gambled, and that's what it is. It's a gamble, and the record company and your publishing and your management, they're all gambling as well, because they're saying, well, we're willing to invest time, money, an enormous amount of energy to get your band to the next level, because we like you and we believe in you. So regardless of that kind of side to it, again, because it's about personal responsibility, but make it no doubt, record companies are still, regardless of the industry, is in a really, really dark, I think, really dark kind of shit place, because people are making a lot less money, I suppose. But it's becoming harder because there's less money. It's becoming harder for record companies to invest in pushing, especially new music. Now, it's still being done, and there are some amazing new music out, like Alt J, and an amazing amount of very, very cool bands. But there's less money there to really, from my experience and from my personal opinion, to really invest, you know, and the idea of getting a record deal, which meant you got £1 million record deal, which meant you were given so much to live on, and then so much to record the album, those kind of, they're gone. You get a recording budget now, and that's usually it. And you're given the cash, and then you're expected to deliver your 10, 12, 40, and whatever amount of tracks, or they might say we want 55 minutes worth of music. Because in our last deal with Roadrunner, that's what we said, we want 55 minutes worth of music. We didn't have 55 minutes, but that's what they wanted. So again, negotiation and things like that. I think when you look at things like that, I think you've got to realise that how important things like, again, like I said, management and record companies and publishing, and actually if they all get on, and that can be another thing, sometimes management and record labels don't get on, and we've also had that experience. We had an experience with an independent label in London and our management, and the two of them did not get on. They hated each other, and that ended very, very quickly, but to the band's detriment in some ways, because then the kind of releases that could have happened didn't happen, because they were fighting all the time and bickering and moaning, and we just sat there going, this isn't a business, this is, you need to be doing your job. And it can be very difficult to kind of pull your management up, or it feels very difficult sometimes to pull your management up, because you're in a management, and what if they drop you? And there's all these, it's incredible when you get signed, it's like the best thing, and sometimes it's the worst thing, because all your insecurities start coming out, and you start focusing sometimes less on the music and more about, do we lose our deal? Maybe if we don't spend enough, we won't get dropped. But that's all bullshit, because we tried that with the first album, we got dropped. Universal, we went into Universal one day and we actually said, we actually like to leave. And they were like, yeah, it's fine, we want you to leave. fair enough, you know. And it can be as easy as that, as much as you might sign. I think on the first album we signed, it was a 4-album deal. It's irrelevant. You might think that's great, geez, 4-album deal means nothing. Again, with Roadrunner we signed was a 3 or 4 album deal. It's irrelevant, you know. It sounds good, it means nothing. So, and again, it came to what happened with Roadrunners. We were signed in 2009, and in 2012, Warner International completed its purchase of Roadrunner as a recording body, and then went through the books and just looked at units. Didn't sell enough, gone. Didn't sell enough, gone. Didn't sell enough, gone. And that's how, because they're looking at it. It's like when somebody goes into receivership, like HMV, and then a company comes along, right, I'll buy this, but I'm going to cut 1,000 jobs, and I'm going to keep maybe a certain amount of stores open. It's the same. It's all business. So they'll come in and go, right, well, we just haven't sold enough. And you can't blame a company for doing it, because I would do the same. I go, well, hang on, who are these guys? They're probably the best band in the world, but they really haven't sold enough to justify keeping them on. So an awful lot of times, a lot of great acts will be cold, I suppose, for want of a better word. And again, I would give full credit to Warner in Ireland, because they were amazing. They were just, the likes of Kieran Savage and that whole Warner team were amazing. And if it wasn't for them and our management, we wouldn't have got the airplay that we got for We Should Be Lovers. Because it was them behind the scenes talking to the programmers, to the music programmers in the radio stations around Dublin and around the country. And then it was getting us the radio interviews to go in, to play our song, to have the banter, to have the chat, and then to actually find the likes of Ray Darcy. It was incredibly difficult to get, and then to get invited back with the likes of Ray Darcy, Ray Foley, Ian Dempsey, and all those, and all the big hitters, and suddenly going, wow, this is incredible. But knowing all the time, the song had a lot to do with it, but it's the people in the background working their asses off you. That, to me, was the real eye-opener, I think, because you just think, well, I used to have a view, because it's what I thought in my head was the large record execs sitting there smoking cigars, burning money and going, this is great, I'm making loads of money from these monkeys. And it's not like that. It's everybody works, and everybody works extremely hard. Because at the end of the day, it's a job that people love doing, but if they don't make money and they don't sell records, sure, they'll get sacked. And it's the same, everybody's expendable, I think, you know. As sad and maybe as unfortunate as everybody is. So you're just only as good maybe as your last song or your last paycheck. God, I sound really depressing. Doom and gloom. Having said all that, I wouldn't trade it for the world. I've had some amazing experiences. I've played in front of 22,000 people at one gig. I've released 2 albums. We had the most played Irish song on Irish radio in 2011. We won Reader's Choice Band or Song of the Year. We've won campaigns for the Volkswagen new car, and we've done loads of things. We've travelled all around Europe touring and had an amazing time. And I think regardless of anything, that's the stuff you'll always remember and never regret doing, you know. And I think, again, for a band starting out, or a band that's gone 10 years, 6 years, 15 years, 2 months, is get everything in a row, get your ducks in a row, and go out with a plan, not just go out with, we've got great tunes and fuck the world. It's great to have that in here, but out here you're smiling, and you're doing the job, and you're making friends, and you're getting on with it. And as we said, you are actually enjoying what you do. If you don't enjoy what you do, don't do it. Because it'll be the most miserable thing and miserable job you will ever do. Because it will tear your fucking heart out and put it on the floor and go squashing into the ground if you don't love what you do. Fortunately, I love what I do, so that makes everything a whole lot easier. I hope I haven't bored too much. I've gone way off track. But music is great, hence everybody's here, and I think, yeah, long live music. And